Mandukya Karika Pranam Om Bhadram Karne Vishnuyam Deva Bhadram Pashe Makshabhirya Jatra Sthirairangaye Stustuvagung Sastanovi Vashema Deva Hitanyadayu Swasti na Indro Vriddhashava Swasti na Pusha Vishwaveda Swasti nastakshyo Aristanemi Swasti no Brihaspati Dadatu Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. We are towards the end, and previously on the previous day we covered verse number 62 of the fourth chapter. It says Advayam Chadvaya Bhasam Chittam Swapnena Sankshaya. It was explained how dream objects and the mind, they are one and the same. Naturally, because when you dream of something, when you are dreaming at night, you see that you have gone here, you have gone there, you have seen this, you have seen that, you did this, you did that. But when you get up, you realize that you are where you were. You never went anywhere. What does it show? Shows that the objects that were in the mind are one with the mind. The mind which created all those objects is the mind in which all those objects merged. And when you analyze further, you realize that neither there was any birth nor there was any death. And if mind becomes the object of perception during dream, it has to be the object of perception even when we are awake. After all, it's the same mind. Actually, it is so. When we study Raj Yoga, we have Raj Yoga talks on YouTube. You can listen to them. When there is an object sends certain sensation which we grasp through our five senses. And when these sensations traveling through our nerve currents reach the mind, another brain. So brain centers get activated and they throw a reaction. That reaction is my knowledge. That reaction is my world. Well, this is how Raj Yoga explains. But Advaita Vedanta goes one step further. It says that there are no objects that create sensation. It's your mind that keeps on creating sensations. And that's why today we have named it the fake world. The world that's all around us. That itself and its objects, they all appear to be so real, so powerful, and yet they don't exist. What I have understood personally, moving away very slightly from the discussion that we are having. Sorry. One thing that we see in Vedanta school of thoughts, that Satchidananda alone exists. According to Acharya Shankar, if everything be destroyed, the idea of existence cannot be destroyed, which we have discussed many times. That is Sat. And we know what exists. You cannot know something that does not exist. And there being no two, that Sat itself is existence. I'm oversimplifying it. and you derive pleasure from what you know, what exists. This is Ananda. So the ultimate truth is Satchit Ananda. However, Vishishtadvaita doesn't agree. Greats like Ramanuja, they don't agree. According to them, Satchit Ananda, these are the qualities of God. How do you reconcile? Either you have to say that Shankaracharya is wrong, or you have to say that Ramanuja is wrong. No, no one is wrong. It is about where exactly you are looking. Those of you who have some idea about particle physics, fundamentals of physics, you know that think of light, which is the best example. Newton proved conclusively that light is made up of stream of particles called corpuscles. They are particles, bullet-like. Yet, there are certain phenomena which could not be explained. And then there were some scientists who thought that light is wave. Then came a great physicist, D. Broglie, and he showed how light is both a wave and a particle. It's a very interesting subject. And I find it extremely fascinating. Like waves have certain highs, certain lows. And depending on how those highs are focused, they behave like particles, and how less, then they behave like waves. Sorry. Now, what is interesting is it was shown, and now it is extremely well known, thoroughly well known, that depending on how you set up your experiment, if you want to see light as particle, you have to set your experiment like that. And if you want to see it as wave, you have to set up your experiments like that. How you want to see light? Because it's both wave and it's both light. Now, naturally, I am not one of those who will try to prove Advaita Vedanta with the help of physics. It is just an example to give an idea what exactly happens. Something similar happens in case of Atman. Atman is both formless, it is also with form. When it is formless, it is Satchit Ananda, as mentioned. For some very strange reason, says that I am one, I will appear as many. We don't know why exactly it happens. Acharya Shankar explained earlier that Shakti, the power of God, is always with God, and Atman in that state is known as Brahman. The moment that the idea comes, as if Brahman and Shakti, they now kind of appear separate. And this particular point has given rise to many different philosophies in India, particularly Shakti worshippers and those who belong to Tantra school of thoughts. Thoughts is not the right word to use, but I'm using it just for convenience. Now, that same Satchidananda, existence, knowledge, bliss, that is pure consciousness, now appears as God, God with form. That which was formless now appears as God with form because canvas has come. If you throw light, you cannot know if light is there. You need to have some kind of canvas. For example, if you're walking through darkness and switch on a torch, you can see the light simply because there is some kind of screen. There are dust particles. There are other objects. When light falls on those things, they get lit up. And that's how you see things. The screen now gets lit up. Shakti now appears lit up. And God now appears as God with qualities. To say that there will be Sakar, Nirguna Sakar. That is, there will be God with form, but with no qualities. Now, that's not possible. Theoretically speaking, you can have Nirakar with Guna, but you can never have Sakar with no Guna, because Guna is an essential trait. The moment there is creation, God will now appear as having qualities. But actually, God has only three qualities: Sat, Chit, Ananda. And these Sat, Chit, Ananda, when they combine with each other, give rise to literally infinite number of qualities. And that's why Ramanuja says, by Nirgun, our scriptures mean so many qualities that cannot be quantified. Well, that's what he thinks. Perfectly all right with us. Now, when we come to our level, that is what is interesting, and Mandukya Karika is discussing that. In Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, I have a desire to discuss Brihadaranyaka Upanishad someday, either in Bengali or in English. Yagyavalkya tells his wife that any love, any affection, is because one sees his own self in that. If you combine these two things, something very interesting comes up. I have not read it anywhere, but I know this to be true. It must be somewhere. Our scriptures are so vast that whatever you think, you'll see that is already written down in some scripture. Because of the differentiation between Sat Chit Ananda, existence, knowledge, bliss, where? At the level of Shakti, which now appears as cosmic mind. It's also known as Prakriti. Prakriti is a dividing line. Shakti is that dividing line. And the whole thing lit up is the cosmic mind. It's a cosmic mind that evolves. Whatever we see, I'm seeing this microphone. What is this? Actually, it's just part of that cosmic mind. It's not an object. But coming to our personal relation, supposing you are before me, I judge you in a particular way. Now, how do I judge you? I judge you actually at three levels: your body, your mind, and your appearance. Because of the body, body means it's you. Once you die, that body will be gone. Is the Sat aspect of Brahman appearing before me, in you, as the body. Body is what? Sat. Now, when you love somebody, for example, there's a mom who loves her baby, newly born baby. Why? Unknown to her understanding. She is loving God, but in the aspect of Sat, existence, because body is nothing but concrete manifestation of existence. Same with mind. Mind has various qualities. Your mind is of one kind, my mind is of different kind. Very often people say that, oh, I am so different. I've heard it from so many people. I am so different. Actually, I am different. And many will say that, oh, people don't even understand me. They don't try to understand me. I am so different. Yes, everyone is different. If you take the sum total of the qualities of a person, that's his or her personality. But essentially, what is that? Chit, consciousness. Consciousness manifesting as mental qualities, mental traits. And there is the sense of beauty in that person. From the time of Plato, we have been going by this beauty and qualities. Poor Greek philosophers, if only they had tried to interact with the Indians, they would have known that all these discussions about beauty and quality, these are so simple for us. Sachidananda. That same Chit now appears as quality, and Ananda appears now as beauty. And you love some person. Why do you love that person? Because you are attracted by the beauty of that person, minus the Sat and Chit. You are affectionate towards some people. Why? You love that Ananda part. Well, who loves you? Who is this you? The same Sachidananda, who is appearing within you as the body, as the mind, and as love. And that's why sometimes the aspect of love is put to heart, which is not true. Whenever you get attracted towards somebody, remember that actually you're loving God. God, who is personified as body, who is personified as a mind. Sometimes you say that, in some of those novels, I had, oh, she is so spiritual. Whenever you love somebody, first thing that comes to your mind is that that person is so spiritual. By spiritual, God knows what these Western people mean. You're totally confused lot. Sorry. Sorry. So, very often these people come to India. They'll travel around for 6 weeks or 6 months with a backpack, go back, start an ashram, and start something like teaching practical yoga, traveling yoga, and wandering yoga, and meandering yoga, and all. But no, things go deeper. When you love someone, you're loving the physical manifestation of God in the body, physical manifestation of God, the Chit, physical manifestation of Ananda. If that person loves you, that loves basically it's Ananda. So whether that person is spiritual in the Western term, or beautiful, or with a great mind, or whatever it is, unknown to you, you're loving God. If only you drop the personification, if only you start looking for that thing whose personification is this body, you will be with God. There is God the Absolute, and there's the mask on that Absolute. You're loving that mask in the form of this person, that person. Remove that mask, and you will be loving God. Now, what is this mask? This is what is being discussed in Mandukya Karika, that this mask is false. Why? To look back. The Absolute, God the Absolute, willed that He will now appear as multi. The whole thing is a thought. And then appeared the dividing line that separates the absolute from time space causation. But this time space causation, it doesn't have any reality of its own. They are not real in the sense that God is real. This is what Mandukya Karika is trying to tell us. Now, if you think that Atman alone has become all this, perfectly all, nothing wrong with it. But remember that Atman, by its very definition, is infinite. When you are worshipping beauty, when you are worshipping beauty in a particular person, you are limiting that Atman. A limited Atman is no Atman. When Sri Ramakrishna saw that all those utensils during worship, they were all conscious. Basically, it was the ocean of consciousness in which that was also conscious. When Sri Ramakrishna touched Swami Vivekananda, and Swami Vivekananda had a similar experience, and he found that even the food that he was taking, it was all conscious. Everything was ocean of consciousness. Well, this is what Mandukya Karika is saying. I hope the idea is clear. So now we move on. With this thing clear in mind, we move on to verse number 63, where it says, Swapna drik pracharan swapne dikshu vai dasashu sitan andajan swedajan vapi jivan pashyati yan sada. When you are sleeping, you dream. You dream that you have been moving in all 10 directions and you are seeing things of different types. Here, the term is andajan, andaj, thing born of eggs. According to our Indian traditions, they say that there are four types of creation, four types of beings. First are known as Udvij, the plants, etc. And the second one, they are known as Svedaj, those born of sweat, things like lice and all. Well, they thought that those things that live in humid places, they are born of sweat. They were wrong in that because now we know that the eggs are planted there. So no use justifying it. If they were wrong, they were wrong. And the third one is Andaj, things born of eggs, and Jarayuj, born of wombs. It's just categorization. It has no impact on overall philosophy. Like tomorrow, if we come across clones, it makes no difference to our philosophy. Says that the dreamer wandering about in all the 10 directions in his dream sees the whole variety of jivas born of eggs, moisture, etc. Andajan, Swedajan. Two are mentioned, two are not. That means the entire gamut of creation, the entire gamut of beings you see in dreams, and yet you know that you never went anywhere. Nothing was created, nothing died, nothing existed, yet you experienced. So, what are those things? Nothing is different from the mind of the dreamer. Is a dreamer who is perceiving his own mind. There is nothing else to perceive. What does that show? Now, these verses are simple, so we won't be lingering unnecessarily. Verse 64 says, Swapna drik chitta drishyaste na vidyante tata pratak tatha tad drishyam evedam swapna drik chittam ishyate. Now, these entities, which are objects of the mind of the dreamer, do not exist apart from his mind. So, all these things that you see, whatever kind of being you might see, Actually, those beings are non-different from your mind. Likewise, the mind of the dreamer is an object of perception of the dreamer alone. Similarly, the mind that you perceive, for example, two brothers, two friends are sleeping side by side. One person dreams of something, another one dreams of something entirely different. That shows that the objects experienced by person A are different from objects perceived by person B. And they being the mind, is very clear that mind of two persons are different. That means one person perceives his mind and person B perceives his mind. That means perception of the mind is separate. Your mind is your mind. My mind is my mind. Essentially, what it means to say that dream objects, they are one with the dream. This is something we need to understand. So that's the reason why one perceives, that's how one perceives one's mind. So we very clearly perceive our mind during our dream. And if you analyze, you are becoming conscious of your own soul. Because when this idea becomes absolutely clear that I am watching my mind, when you wake up, you look back and you see that you are looking at your mind. Who was looking? You were looking. Because in the waking state, it's also mixed up that we cannot say that we know our jivatma, our soul, our self. And this we have to try consciously during meditation. When you sit for meditation, when you are meditating on your East, on your God, one of the first things that you experience is your own soul, your Atman, which is inside you. And when you perceive that, when you see that, then you perceive your Easter on whom you have been meditating as living being, as Jyotirmaya, surrounded by divine light. The divine light is Atman. You actually see it, it's not imagination. So there you see Atman differently, and in dream you see Atman differently. But under normal waking condition, right now as we are, we cannot experience Atman. It's a very sad thing. And this subject object duality that we experience in our waking state, this is what differentiates one mind from the other mind. When you have this subject object duality, this is the empirical mind, the mind with which we work. And when this duality vanishes, subject object duality vanishes, is the state of Atman. The slight hint that we get, very slight hint that we get, is during dreams. That's why people who have extremely lucid dreams, those who remember their dreams well, it is very easy for them to disassociate themselves from the external world. Because then you can think that, okay, fine. Whatever I was dreaming, all the things that I dreamt, these were essentially all mind. And the same mind that continues in the waking state. So everything that I am seeing in this waking state, the world that I am seeing is all fake. Why it is fake? Fake. Because all the objects that I see in this external world is actually my mind, nothing else. Actually, it is so. Well, discussion was there in the past and we'll continue with that discussion. That the verse 64 says, nothing exists other than the dreamer. There's a dreamer. In whatever way he is dreaming, there is no object, nothing. And yet everything has been created. And then comes verse number 65 that links up. Charat jagrate jagrat dikshuve dasasu stitan Andajan, Swedajan vapi jivan pashyati yan sada. And continues. Jagrat chitte kshani yaste na vidyante tata prithak tata tadrishyame vedam jagratas chittam ishyate. The way things move during the dream, the way objects are created in the dream, and the way we experience things in the dream, the objects we experience in dream, just like that, we experience in the waking state too. Why should we say that the mind of the waking state is different from the mind of the dream state? After all, it's the same mind. Your son, your mischievous son, is same as your adorable son. You cannot say that my adorable son is someone and my mischievous son is someone else. No, they are one and the same. Sometimes he indulges in some kind of acts, and at other times he is indulging in some other kind of acts. It's same. It's the same mind which during dream state creates the objects, experiences them, finds pleasure, gets terrified, fights. You'll see that if you have anger against somebody, sometimes you will see that person in dream and you'll find that you're shouting at that person, etc. Because we take it out. We create that person in our dream and we work out our emotions. But that exactly is what happens in the waking state too. You know, I'm always appalled by this modern civilization in the sense that thousands of years ago, think of my life, your life, we would have been born maybe in some kind of a tribe tens of thousands of years ago. And we would have known only that small tribe and the small world and the village where we lived. And I assume for our convenience that we belong to an agrarian society. So, well, the world might have appeared real. But in today's world, just imagine the number of persons we come across, things we experience. When you think of maybe say a year ago and persons with whom you were a year ago, it all seems like dream. If you just apply your imagination a bit, you feel as if something happened in dream. If any one of you had an experience of a very nasty situation, for example, you were in some kind of accident, life threatening, or you were in a situation which was not an accident, but it was a situation which was life threatening for you. You'll see that details get erased. You create your own reality simply to survive because memories get altered. And neuroscientists say that the cells that have recorded those memories, life threatening, supposing something went wrong and you were drowning in a river. So reality gets fuzzed. Your mind doesn't want to face those disastrous realities. But moments of love, those good moments in life, we cherish them and they come to us in ever larger size, in ever larger proportions. Why? Because Atman loves Atman. Atman being Satchit Ananda. It wants to experience only Ananda. It doesn't want to experience any misery. It wants to forget misery. It wants to forget the different situations and different incidents, accidents through which we pass through. To remember, you want to dwell on goodness. Because goodness is our nature. Evil is not our nature. A corollary of this is always try to look the good aspect of a person because that's that person's nature and that's your nature. So 65, 66 says, the waking man wandering about in all directions, just like the dream, in his waking state sees the whole varieties of jiva, born of eggs, moisture, etc. And they are the objects of the mind of the waking man and do not exist apart from it. Oh, we have discussed so many times all this. So, no, we don't need to elaborate. Likewise, the mind of the waking man is an object of his perception alone. His mind is not the perceiver. Atman is the perceiver of the mind. Mind and the objects that we so called perceive in the dream state and that appears in the waking state, they're one and the same. It's like it's like producing clay dolls. Take up some clay and create different idols, different dolls out of it. What are they? They're just dolls. The objects, whether be that in objects that be in the dream state or in the waking state, they are not different from the mind. And mind is perceived by Atman. Sorry. So mind has no reality apart from Atman. Objects do not have any reality apart from mind. Are we ready to accept all that? No, we are not. That's why Upanishads were taught to limited people. And Mandukya Upanishad is meant for much lesser number of people. Verse number 67 says, Uvehi anyonya drishyete king tad asti iti nochyate lakshana shunyam ubhayam tan mete neva griyate. Say 60, verse number 67 is very interesting. Both the mind and the jivas are objects of each other's perception. Can the one exist independent of the other? It says, jiva and mind. The reply of the wise is in the negative. There is no evidence of the existence of the one without the other. They are cognized only through each other. Now, when you are in dream, during dream state, when you're seeing objects, you realize that objects in dreams, they are one and the same. Objects in the mind, they are one and the same. So they do not have any separate existence. That has been discussed many times now. But as far as philosophies are concerned, particularly in the Western philosophy, there are the idealists and there are the realists. According to idealists, is the mind. Mind is there, it perceives objects. And for the realists, objects create the mind and it's the objects that's perceived by the mind. But according to Mandukya Karika, both of them are wrong. Neither the idealists are correct nor the realists are correct. Why? Says that perception and the perceived objects, they create each other. For example, think of some object. The example used here is of an elephant. There's an elephant. It's dream elephant. And dream of elephant is one and the same as the mind. But the same happens in the waking state too. You see an elephant, and this elephant is actually non-different from the mind. The awareness part within, the same. Mind and elephant, they are non-different. Now, existence of, for example, here is this microphone. Its existence is creating its awareness. And because there is an awareness, its existence is being created. Idealists and realists exactly quarrel at this point. You have the knowledge of jar. Because you have the knowledge of jar, you become, you get the knowledge of its existence. You have to know the jar, and that's how you know the existence. And because jar exists, that's why you know the jar. So knowledge and existence, they're codependent. Without knowledge, there cannot be existence. And without existence, there cannot be any knowledge. Exactly this. So exactly what happens that object of knowledge, the object of knowledge and the instrument of knowledge are essentially one. I don't know if you caught the argument. Argument is actually very simple. It may appear complicated, but no, it's quite simple. Here is this pen. Pen has an existence. And because it has an existence, I know it. And because I have the knowledge of this pen, that is why it exists for me. If I don't know this pen, for example, sometimes when we are not mindful, you are traveling by a bus through a crowded street. You're not mindful of so many faces, all the things uh, that we cross. So they don't exist for you. In earlier times, rich people, they didn't care for the poor. So the poor didn't exist. They were a solid mass. Basically, they were not even aware of their existence. And that's what happens even today, practically. The bottom line of this argument is that there is this instrument of knowledge, be it senses, sense organs, be it nerve currents, whatever you call. Ultimately, the whole thing boils down to mind. So the instrument of knowledge and the object of knowledge, they are one and the same. The dream elephant and the mind, they are one and the same. In the waking state too, when we see an object, we become aware of it. We become aware of its existence. And if it exists, we know that it exists. So knowledge and existence, that is the instrument of knowledge and the object of knowledge, they are one and the same. Yet they appear as separate. When you go into samadhi, these three merge into one. The knower, the knowable, and the instrument of knowledge, they merge into one. And then you realize that it was Atman. All along it was Atman which appeared as objects, which appeared as the instrument of knowledge, which is mind or the process of knowledge. See it in any way. Actually, they were one and the same. Yet, in this world, they appear as subject object. And the process that links subject with the object. In samadhi, in the state of knowledge, they all merge into one. There is no duality. That's what he says in verse number 67. Ubhe hi anyonya drishyate king tad astiti nochyate. That two things. One who knows and one who is known. And this process of knowledge says that they are one and the same because they have no separate existence. Why do we see? They will use that term tatchittata, absorption We had explained in one of our earlier talks how awareness increases eminence. Awareness is absorption. You get absorbed in something and it becomes real. We have been taught since our childhood, since we were baby, our parents, our neighbors, our teachers, they taught us the reality of this world. For example, I've never seen a rocket. I've never been to a moon. I've never been to the moon. I've not seen an atom. I've not seen an atomic explosion. Yet I believe. Why? Not because science books say, but because we believe some people who teach us. And by being with that knowledge for a very long time, we acquire tat chittata. Our mind becomes one with that object. And then those things become real for us. Does that change anything for us? For a scientist, nothing changes. He continues to be what he was. But for a spiritual person, everything changes. When a spiritual person gets absorbed in, say, meditation on Atman, meditation on God, ultimately everything changes. Initially, the process is same. You keep on thinking of your Easter, your chosen deity for so long. Your mind gets absorbed, and because your mind gets absorbed, the reality becomes more and more clear. And then you suddenly realize that the reality of subject, object, and verb, this does not exist. This is what is being said. It's long discussion. And then things have become extremely simple. Next three verses. Yatha swapnamayo jivo jayate mriyate picha tatha jiva ami sarve bhavanti na bhavanti cha. The way the objects of the dream, they're born and they die, and yet neither they are born nor they die. Just like that. All these beings, neither they are born nor they die. It's all creation of the mind. It's frightening. Believe me, it's frightening. And यथा माया मयो जीवो जायते म्रियते पिच तथा जीवा अमी सर्वे भवन्ति न भवन्ति च. As a dream jiva comes into existence and disappears, so also these jivas perceived in the waking state appear and disappear. And as the jiva conjured up by the magician comes into existence and disappears, so also these jivas perceived in the waking state appear and disappear. This is about, first was a dream, second is about magicians. Magicians also create beings. They appear and they disappear. Actually, nothing changes. Yatha nirmitako jivo jayate mrite piva तथा जीवामी सर्वे bhavanti na bhavanti cha. Says that sometimes objects are created by the power of mantra. It's believed. Maybe they are created. So these are neither born nor they die. Just like that, the jivas in this real world, they are neither born nor they die. The idea is that all these categorizations of different kinds of species and all these discussions about thousands of things, including science, these are all products of mind. Now, this philosophy is so exalted that the critics of Gaudapada and critics of Advaita Vedanta, they call him Prachanna Buddhist. It sounds like Vijnanavad, Shunyavad, but it's not. It's Brahmavad. It's Brahmavad. The fundamental difference between Buddhism and Vedanta. Vedanta is Brahmavad. Atman alone exists. And Atman alone appears as all these things. We had begun with how Atman appears in this relative world as Satchitananda, body, mind, and love. Essentially, whatever you're experiencing and whatever your emotions, they are all Atman. Nothing is outside Atman. The world as we understand, the world as we think, it's fake. It's just fake. Thank you. Om Shanti Shanti.